Vampire Survivors, Stardew Valley, Slay the Spire. Ever so often we get games that are so popular that they spawn a subgenre of their own, and due to the financial success of the original, leads to other developers trying something in the same ballpark, hoping to strike it big. Indie games are lauded for their creativity, so it might seem antithetical to make a quote-unquote clone, but these are massive trends that developers can ride on, and the next one is here. In case you haven't noticed, a little game named Rusty's Retirement released last week and has quickly shot up the charts, with the developer revealing that the game sold over 100,000 copies in just 5 days, and at $6 a pop, it's a substantial amount of money for any indie developer, which is why we're beginning to see similar games being announced. This is a cozy idle farming game that sits at the bottom of your desktop screen while you do other things on the desktop, whether it be watching YouTube videos like this, browsing the web, doing your homework, or working on your side hustle, in which the characters, for the most part, mill about tending to the crops and building things, since you will eventually be able to automate a large amount of the work, and the game will only require your occasional input. It is funny how things go full circle in games, since this is very reminiscent of the heyday of idle games, with the poster boy for that being Cookie Clicker. But if you weren't able to tell, due to the farming theme about a retired robot, of course this new wave is much more chill rather than having you spamming the left click, although the same incremental game type progression systems are in it to keep the game compelling. The idle games of the previous era were largely flash-based or browser-based, so you were either alt-tabbing into another window or having it set up on the left and right sides of your screen, with the game in one window and whatever else in the other, with this bottom-of-the-screen concept being the slightly different twist on the idea. At one point in time, I was so fascinated by idle games that I had something like 3 to 4 of them running at a time, and it was to the extent that I wasn't really playing anything else and was simply watching the numbers go up in a very reductionist take on the video game, which is the appeal of games like this. Eventually, however, it was interfering with my productivity, since constantly checking in on a game while trying to work is not helpful at all, so I had to stop. But idle games still fascinate me to this day, although with the general creep towards free-to-play monetization has turned me off that subset of games. This game, however, is different as compared to gamified productivity applications, which is a story for another day, since this game doesn't masquerade as something that might improve your productivity. Rather, it is just a straight-up literal mini-game that allows you to get the feeling of progression that we love in games, while you're also able to do something else on your PC, in which I don't think having work and this game on screen at the same time would be a particularly productive combination. So, what's coming up, you ask? Well, we first have My Little Life, which has a modern day-ish setting about a little guy living in a modern age and building and expanding his home. There's a cosmetic decoration aspect to the house and furniture, and our character has to go to work and advance their career, hopefully earning larger paychecks along the way to spend on their home. This comes to us from Nine Finger Games, creator of the Metroidvania Zeppelin Bygone, who went on to make the Bullet Heaven title Heretic's Fog, which has worked out for them, so maybe this will as well. Another in-development title is Idle Waters, one that has the classic fishing theme, in which our angler is constantly throwing out a line, but the game will wait for you to click if there is a fish on, so it is relatively chill in that sense. Still, the constant pop-ups and having to click might be annoying, but I love a good fishing game, so this is of interest. There's also this untitled game by Will Enders, who is going by 14-hour lunch break on Twitter, which is excellent, who's making a tiny kingdom builder title with tower defense elements. It seems rather early on right now, to the extent that emojis are used to represent villagers and enemies, and does have a very Godot look if you know what I mean, since that is the engine it is being built in. This is just the beginning, since if Vampire Survivors is anything to go by, it had a whopping 8 reviews 1 week after its early access release, and Rusty's Retirement already has 2,700, which is why this subgenre has the potential to be massive, leading to a new wave of similar games. Of course, for every Potato or Soulstone Survivors is to Vampire Survivors, or Monster Train is to Slay the Spire, there are literally hundreds of other clones that barely sell any copies at all, so it's not a sure thing by any means, but if you're an indie developer, you might want to try your luck. Although check back in a year's time, and people will probably be complaining about the number of Rusty likes that all end up blurring together. We have examples of farming sim, life sim, fishing, and kingdom building so far, and most games can actually fit into this bottom of window kind of setup, from a classic fantasy RPG that sees the hero moving from left to right slaying enemies, to a factory building automation title, to city builders of different themes and visuals, to a tavern management game, auto runner shoot 'em up, and how about the most meta of them all, wrapping back around with a literal clicker game at the bottom of the screen? Or how about the opposite top of screen game and the side of screen vertical title, where these are all possibilities and we will probably see games like this being made in the months to come. Apologies in advance if this video is the catalyst for the surge in similar games. The galaxy-brained among you might actually see where this is trending towards, and yes, it is right back to the 90s with desktop virtual pets, of games like Desktop Goose shown off here, but we also have upcoming titles like Nanomon Virtual Pet, a game that predates the success of Rusty's retirement and has been in development for quite a while, having more in common with a Tamagotchi or Digimon. 90s kids will know. Or how about Weirdlets, a title coming to us from a Malaysian developer, having both the in-game interface and home area, but when minimized, the pet can wander your desktop and offers things like reminders to drink water and productivity-related options. So yes, what is old is new again, as is always the case in video games. For players, how many of these do you need to see before you get sick of them? I'm guessing, if you're interested in this as a concept, you'll play the original, so Rusty's Retirement, and then maybe 2 or 3 other titles with new ideas, and that will be that until the next wave comes along. If you're a developer, I want to hear your thoughts. Are you going to make a game like this, or does the whole sameness and clone aspect turn you off? Regardless, the next year or so should be interesting to watch, and if you are a developer, find out why you should not surprise release your game in this video.